The news is out now about House investigators interviewing former Justice Department officials, one in particular who drafted, although he never sent, a resignation letter during the 4 years that this scum, filthy bastard Trump was president, right towards the end, after the election. This letter, this official said he wrote because of what he said were the Orange Vomit's, quote, direct instructions, end quote, to use the Justice Department to support the Orange Vomit's lies about the election outcome. Unbelievable. His name is Patrick Hovakimian. I hope I'm saying that right. He was the chief of staff to the then acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen. And he wrote the letter, this resignation letter, January 3rd, because he had a strong feeling that Rosen was going to be fired at a meeting that day that the Orange Vomit had demanded at the White House. The draft letter, which was reviewed by CNN, says, quote, this evening, after Acting Attorney General Jeff Rosen, over the course of the last week, repeatedly refused the president's direct instructions to utilize the Department of Justice's law enforcement powers for improper ends, the president removed Jeff from the department, end quote. Now, it was never sent. Consequently, we didn't hear about it until this investigation being conducted by the House Select Committee. But this document, apparently, reported by CNN anyway, is part of a mountain of Justice Department documents turned over to House and Senate committee investigating events that led up to the U.S. Capitol attack, ordered, organized, supported, and carried out by Trump supporters who bought into the Orange Vomit's filthy lies. This man, Hovakimian, Patrick, it must be Hovakimian, that's how it's spelled. Anyway, he spent more than 3 hours yesterday or Tuesday being interviewed by the House Oversight Committee. Now, that's not the Select Committee that's investigating, but it's a committee that will turn this information over to the Select Committee. And Hovakimian is among several justice officials, including Rosen, Jeffrey Rosen, and Richard Donahue, the former acting Deputy Attorney General. They are all expected to provide interviews in the coming days. And when contacted by CNN, of course, the attorney for Mr. Hovakimian declined to comment, which makes perfect sense. But the letter was addressed to top Justice Department officials. But it was never sent because Jeffrey Rosen survived the Trump meeting and stayed on until Biden's inauguration. About half a dozen officials had signaled plans to resign if Rosen had been fired. That's according to people briefed on all this filthy, rotten shit from Donald Trump. Anyway, Trump, if you remember, wrote to Justice Department officials last December after the election. And if ever there was a smoking gun, is this not it? But the filthy Orange Vomit wrote, quote, just say that the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me, end quote. Donald Filthy Trump. Jesus. Now, at the time that letter was drafted, the Orange Vomit apparently was thinking about replacing Rosen with Jeffrey Clark, who was the acting Assistant Attorney General, acting assistant, which means he had no power, none whatsoever, had not been confirmed by the Senate. He was a Trump shill, acting Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Division, Jeffrey Clark, who had apparently made it known to the Orange Vomit quietly behind the scenes, this is all coming out, that he was more than willing to carry out the Orange Vomit's wishes to pressure the state of Georgia to accept these fraud claims that the Justice Department had already investigated and found to be totally without merit. Just more bullshit from Donald Trump. So Clark had drafted a letter to be sent to Georgia officials laying out these bullshit fraud allegations. But Jeffrey Rosen and Donahue, the other guy, refused to send it. And Jeffrey Clark, had no authority to send shit. This is a guy that had to get permission to go to the bathroom, and Trump was going to put him in charge of the Justice Department. So this is the way CNN writes it. In an episode seemingly out of one of his reality television shows, Trump had Clark and Rosen come to the White House, where for hours they essentially vied for the Attorney General's job. For hours, justice officials stood by waiting to hear the outcome of the meeting, where Trump ultimately decided to not fire Rosen. And Clark, this Jeffrey Clark little piglet, is one of the people that the congressional committee, various committees have said they're going to interview this little piece of dog shit, really. Now, Trump, of course, impeached twice, thrown out on his ass, is still trying to claim executive privilege for some of these conversations. But the Biden Justice Department said, no, bullshit. That might have worked when you were president, but no more. So the Justice Department cleared these former officials to provide the testimony about their interactions with the Orange Vomit. Now, a lawyer, a little pissant lawyer for Trump, an ambulance chaser, a traffic violation lawyer named Doug Collins, sent a letter recently to all these former officials saying that the Orange Vomit wouldn't take further steps to block the testimony. But in a Fox News interview on Tuesday, Doug Collins, the punk-ass lawyer, said he hoped that these officials would abide by the executive privilege restrictions, saying, quote, the former president still believes those are privileged communications that are covered by executive privilege, end quote. Oh, get the fuck out of town. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Your boy, Doug Collins, is a piece of shit kicked to the curb by the voters in this country. Oh, I know he doesn't believe it, and maybe you don't either, but he's a piece of shit kicked to the curb by the voters of this country. Executive privilege? Give me a fucking break. Executive privilege. Jesus. Oh, calm down, Mike. Man. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.